Yo, what is up guys? I'm here hitting you up with a new video. Today I wanted to make a tier list about the Blessing Stones from solo leveling Arise. Since we didn't have a Blessing Stone tier list yet, I actually put in the effort to make a Blessing Stone tier list by myself, uploading all these images. I made it public as well so you can use it. For the people who will just skip to the end to watch the final tier list, just don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. It really helps out and pushes the algorithm as well. So let's get started off with the first one, with the Advanced Dagger technique. So the Advanced Dagger technique, once the enemy drops below 70% HP, your damage increases by 14%. This one will go straight into S tier. It's very good use, because usually with this game, damage is more important than survivability, and everything that increases your damage is very good and you can make use of it. So the Assassin's Proficiency increases your back attack damage by 16%. Usually where you can get back attack damage is after doing a Shadow Step, but since it's a little bit more situational and the condition for activating that is to actually attack the enemy in the back, this one will go to A tier. It's good and has 2% more attack than the Advanced Dagger technique, but the condition to activate it is a little bit more difficult, and that's why we put it in here. Bloodlust, when hit, decreases the target's attack by 12% for 6 seconds. When attacking, decreases the target's defense by 12% for 6 seconds. The Bloodlust will definitely immediately go into S tier. It's super duper strong. I have the blue version of the Blessing Stone. It's very good, because once you just have to do a basic attack and it automatically triggers, have a damage increase just by inflicting like a small defense break. It's up the entire battle, and if you get hit, you decrease the attack percentages of the enemy. This is super strong. You might want to always use this one when you have it. Next up, we have the Boss Slayer. The Boss Slayer increases your damage by 20%, but the cooldown of your dashes increases by 30%. This one is also very strong because most of the content right now is heavily focused on bosses. If you do anchor missions, instance dungeons, power of destruction, whatever, there's always a boss, and having 20% raw damage increase is insane. The only drawback is you have a 30% increase on your dash recovery, but I feel like you can get away with it. It's just straight up more damage, and it's very helpful for bossing content. So Camouflage, every time you get hit by more than 5% of your own max HP, you enter the Camouflage state for 3 seconds, and it will recover your HP by 5% for every second. So that's 15% HP recovery every time you get hit. Based on that, it can really help helping you out stay alive. But really, it's super niche, and I would put it into C tier, because if you get hit, it's more like you missed a dodge or something, and you can get away with just repeating the battle and play it a little bit smoother. This one might be better. Actually, let me put it into B tier. B tier, that's where it could be, but usually you want to go more into the damage route. So the Chains of Blood is a blessing which increases your damage by 30% of the lost HP ratio. That means basically the less HP you have, the more damage you deal, but it also increases the damage you're taking at the same time. Based on that, I would also put the Chains of Blood into the B tier category, because while it helps you dealing more damage, the condition for it to trigger is you have to be low on HP, and for some fights you really don't want to do that, because there could be battles which are more tougher than others, and you really don't want to get hit at all or something, or you have to stay alive as long as you can, and to make use of it you have to be very low and then have to play it perfectly. So I would put it into B tier, because it's more a situational Blessing Stone than anything else. The Conqueror of Adversity, every time your HP decreases by 30%, your attack, defense and HP increases by 4%. So basically a 12% increase. This one is definitely C tier, because all you really get is a 12% attack increase, and you have to be very low on HP to trigger that and make use of it. While if you have like the Advanced Dagger technique or the Boss Slayer, it just straight up gives you more damage than the Conqueror of Adversity, with having less of an issue to activate in the first place. Next up, we have the daily completion quest. This is A tier, definitely. We all have it right now. We all know what it is doing. It really doesn't matter if you have the gold version or the blue version. It does the thing. It helps you stay alive once. And actually, for Power of Destruction on the hard mode, it actually requires you to use that one, because otherwise the boss will one-shot you and there's no way for you to survive it. This usage might be lower in the future, but for right now, this one is very good. Or good. A tier. Next one we have is the Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is going straight into the S tier. The gold version of it gives you an additional 1000 MP, and I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on MP. You really need the MP to keep using your skills. Once you run out, it's quite rough to gain them back, unless you use skills like the Commander's Touch with the absorption to gain back your MP. This one helps you out to have more consistent skill usage, especially in long drawn out battles. So the double-edged sword can stack up to 4 times and last for 10 seconds, but the second requirement doesn't really matter too much. This skill basically increases your damage by 16%, while also increases the damage of the enemy by 16%. Based on that, I would still put it into the A tier, because having the enemy deal more damage is not as good, because one mistake and you could possibly die, while with the Boss Slayer and with the advanced Dagger technique, for example, or even with the Bloodlust, you have damage output while making sure not to immediately or potentially die by an enemy's attack. Fatal Strike. Your target's break gauge instantly decreased by 5% when you land a critical hit, cooldown 2 seconds. Fatal Strike goes into A tier. It's pretty good. It has a cooldown of 2 seconds, but the condition to activate it is to get a crit. It shouldn't be too rough to get a crit, but besides breaking gauge, it doesn't have any other use than that. So it's good, but there's one which is even better than the Fatal Strike, so that's why it is A tier. Next up, we have the HP extraction. You recover 2% of your HP when defeating an enemy. Since most of the content right now is bossing content, this one will go straight into C tier, because at boss stages there's only the boss, so you do not benefit at all from that. That one only helps you maybe with gates where there's like a lot of enemies, where you can put it in for a lifesteal effect, but that's all for that one. Kandiarus Blessing will increase your maximum HP by 10%. This one will straight go into F tier. It's completely trash. There's no reason for you to have 10% more max HP. Really, Sung Jinwoo doesn't benefit from it at all. There's no real reason to have more HP in the game. There's not even HP scaling effects for Jinwoo right now. So this one is completely useless, and I would highly recommend to avoid it. Kasakas Steel Scales. Effect is your damage taken decreases by 15%. So having taken less damage is quite good. I would put Kasakas Steel Fang into B tier right now. The effect itself is good, but you don't really benefit from it at all right now, because currently the biggest issue is not necessarily survivability, but the lack of damage we are dealing in the game. Mana Rampage. Your attack will increase by 16%, but your mana consumption will also increase by 16%. This one will also go for me into the B tier category. If you want to use Mana Rampage, you really have to combine it with a Demon Slayer and other effects to really make sure that your mana doesn't run out within like the first 5 to 10 seconds of the battle. That's why you need Demon Slayer in combination if you want to run the Mana Rampage, and that's why I put it into the B tier right now. Next up, we have the Monarch Domain. When you summon a Shadow, Monarch's Domain activates to increase the Shadow's attack within the domain by 100%. The Shadow also deals damage equal to 100% of the value of your attack stat every second to the enemy within the domain, duration 8 seconds. This one will probably surprise you now, but this skill here, I have the blue version of it. I tested it out, and this Blessing Stone is a huge disappointment. F tier, it's absolutely trash. I tested it on chapter 8, Igris hard mode. I tested my shadows without the Monarch Domain. The blue version gives you 40% increase, while the gold version gives you a 100% increase. And the difference in damage was 1 bar. that didn't do anything, and it lasts for 8 seconds, and then you have to wait 60 seconds to recast your shadows again, and then you have like the small domain area where they actually deal increased damage. This one, completely avoided. It's absolutely trash. Pulverize. The power of the break effects you apply to your enemies increase by 30%. The damage you deal targets affected by a break effect increases by 30%. For me personally, this one, Pulverize, will go straight into... I think you could argue for it to be S tier, but I think S plus tier is... Actually, you know what? Let's put it in S tier. I put Pulverize in S tier. It's very strong and increases your break damage by 30%. And when they're in breaks, that it also increases your damage by 30%. This one, especially with bossing content, gives you so much utility and damage in one. You, in bossing content with break gauges, you will always want to use that one. So next up, we have the Reawakening, which your skill cooldowns will all decrease by 20%. This blessing here is by far the most broken and strongest blessing in the game. If you get the golden version of Reawakening or any other version, but especially the golden version, consider yourself very, very lucky, because it will decrease all your cooldowns by 20%, and that is so huge. If you have it, you will never unequip this one, because it's just too good to not use it at all. You will always want to use that one. Sharp Perception. Your critical hit rate will increase by 3% for 8 seconds when your attacks hit, stacking up to 6 times. This one will give you straight up 18% more crit rate. It's very good. I would also rank it to S, because we are capped at 50%. This one gives you an additional 18% crit rate, puts you already into 68%. Very good. This might become a little bit weaker in the future, but for right now, if we have more ways to get crit rate, but for right now, this one is definitely S tier and very good to use overall. Next up, we have Speed. Your speed will increase by 20%, and your dash cooldown will decrease by 20%. I will put the speed right now into A tier. I think this, I couldn't test it, but I like the fact that you can run 20% faster, and your dashes also recover 20% faster. This looks very good. I put it for now into A tier. It could potentially be an S tier or even S plus tier. It could also be C tier. It could really depend on how good this is, especially with dodging and evading certain attacks. But for right now, A tier is where I put it in. Swiftness. The maximum number of consecutive dashes you can perform increases by 1. There's a 30% chance that your dash cooldown will reset when you use it. This one also goes straight into A tier for me. It's very good. Also, if you combine it with the boss layer, which increases your cooldown by 30% for your dashes, this might be a good combo with Swiftness together, because then you start off with 4 dashes instead of 3, and you have a 30% chance to just recover 1 to kind of compensate the boss slayer Blessing Stone's negative effect. Next up, we have Tenacity, which will decrease the damage you take in by 50% when your HP's 30% or less. I will put it for now into C tier, because there's really no good use for it. Being low on HP doesn't really help you at all. There might be a combo feature with certain Blessing Stones. For example, this one here, which requires you to be low on HP to make use of it, and then you combine it with the Tenacity to make sure you stay low but without dying at all. But for right now, it's not that great. I would put it definitely into C tier. Next up, we have the Weakness Detection. Your weakness attribute damage increases by 20%. Since you usually want to go into have elemental advantages whenever you go into an instance, this one is just straight 20% damage increase, and will go all the way up here in the S tier category. It's very good. It's kind of one you want to use most of the time, I guess, unless you fight a boss like Power of Destruction where you don't have elemental coverage, then you don't want to use it at all. But as long as you have like an elemental advantage, you definitely want to make use of that to deal more damage. Last but not least, we have the Wolf Assassin. The damage you deal to non-boss monsters increased by 16%. I feel like since we don't have much use of that right now, I will put the Wolf Assassin into the B tier right now, because most of the content right now is just killing bosses overall. But if it comes to time, it could also be an A tier. If you have like stages or enemies you have to fight before, you could then rank it up, but you have also other effects, like for example the advanced dagger technique, to increase your damage, right? So this is why I will put it for now into the B tier. I could be wrong about that. It could also be A tier, B tier, but I feel like B tier is a safe spot, but I will put it into like a high B tier position. Actually, don't take too much attention about where I rank that stuff. I will just put it into the category. It's not like best to worst or something. But this is how I would rank the Blessing Stones right now into the game. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think, which Blessing Stones you obtained right now in the game, what your experience are with certain Blessing Stones, and I will see you with the next one. Deuces.